Today we're going to do a vocabulary lesson, and for our review, we're going to read or reread Corduroy's Best Halloween Ever, based on the character created by Don Freeman and illustrated by Lisa McHugh. And then I would ask the students some questions about the story that relates to our last lesson plan for literary elements, such as, can anyone tell me the plot, or in other words, the middle, beginning, end of the story? And can anyone tell me what the setting or the time and place of the story is? Now, for our overview, our purpose and our importance is to give the students an understanding of words and their different meanings and forms, so that they can become strong lifelong readers and spellers. Our continuity for the past is that students learned the different literary elements in a story and how to identify them. Today, the learner will complete activities that give them a better understanding of synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms. For the future, the students will go over their vocabulary words and list any synonyms, antonyms that relate to their vocabulary words. Our objective for today is to identify and explain common synonyms and antonyms and homonyms. For our motivation activity, the learner will complete a word map using a word from their list of vocabulary words from this week. The students will pick a word such as, say, mouse, and then they will draw 4 lines coming from their word, such as mouse. I just picked a random word, and they'll draw, well, I didn't draw a box, but they will draw a box around it, and then they'll have their 4 lines, and for each line they'll have, say, an antonym here, a synonym here, a homonym here, and then they can pick a different form. They could add a suffix or a prefix to the word for the last spot over here. And they'll just pick a random word from their list of vocabulary words this week to do that with. And all they'll need for that activity is their pencil, piece of paper, and their list of vocabulary or spelling words to do that with. And each student will do that with at least 2, maybe 3 words, depending on how much time we have that day. For our procedures, the student objective is going to be that the learner will be able to identify synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms with an 85% accuracy. The first procedure or activity that the students will do will be synonym dominoes, or this activity right here. And what we'll do is the students they'll have cards that kind of look like this. The first card, because they're going to be put in groups, is going to say start, and it's going to have a word on it. And they'll be put in groups of 2. And what the first student will do is they'll have the start card, and they'll read the first word attached to the other side of it, which in this case it's the word small. So they'll put that word down, and then they'll pick up the next domino, or they'll find another domino that has a synonym of the word small. So for that, we find the word little, and they would attach it to the end of the domino card that has the word small on it. Then they would read the other word on the other end of it, which is end, and their partner would find a domino card that had the matching synonym to that one, and they would take it and they would fix it to the end of that word, which would be finish, and on the other end would be large, and their partner would go and find the synonym on the domino that had the word that matched that synonym, which would be big, and they would place that to the end of that domino. And the students would continue doing this until all their cards had been matched up and they got to the end where there was a card that had a word that also had stop on the other end of it. They would have a word here and they would have the word stop right here, which means all of their dominoes had been matched. And for this activity, you would need the synonym domino cards, and everyone would work in groups of 2, and you would assess this activity by observation. And you could either use the cards that come with this activity, or you can maybe use their vocabulary words, or you can use your own list of words like I did, just writing on a note card. Then, for our next activity, the students will play opposites attract. And for this activity, you're going to have 3 stacks of cards, one for each player, because it's still going to be in groups of 2, and each player will have a stack of cards, and then there's going to be a 3rd stack of cards that will be in the middle. It's going to be called the lake stack. So you'll have that in the middle between the 2 players, and they'll pick up their cards and they'll match the antonyms together. And like so, like I have wild and I have tame, and those 2 are antonyms, so I would match them together. And another example, I have day and I have night, and I would match those 2 together. Now I have above and I have another word, but they don't match. So I would ask my partner if they had the antonym that would match my card, and if they didn't, I'd have to go in the lake and get a card from there to try and match my antonym. And the students would go back and forth between each other, trying to match all of their antonyms together until all of them are matched. For that activity, you would only need your word cards, and they would work in small groups or pairs. And then for our closure activity, the students will complete a worksheet just on homonyms, because I didn't have time to include an actual complete activity with that today. And then for homework, the students will complete a synonym, antonym, and homonym matching worksheet. Our early finishers will read a book from the classroom library or their own library book from the school library. Our special needs students will work with a paraprofessional completing worksheets that have to deal with today's objective. Our English language learners will work with a paraprofessional speech teacher, pronouncing the words and learning the different definitions of the synonym, antonyms, and homonyms. And our remediation students will spend their free time repeating the synonym domino activity with the teacher's help, and also those students will kind of revert that activity too, because you can also do that same activity with antonyms, not just synonyms. And then for our enrichment, the students will play a matching game that has synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms mixed up with all the words facing face down, so they flip them over and try and match them. And that's the end of our lesson today.